It could not be more appropriate, could it, for us to gather here at the Legion the day after Canada Day as we honored and celebrated all those who have sacrificed and served to preserve Canada's way of life, our values, and our freedom. A fight I think we all agree. We all, as Canadians, must be more vigilant for now than ever before. I do also want to recognize the presence of the local UCP MLA, Jackie Lovely. Thank you for being here, for joining us. I do just want to mention that since 2015, when I was first elected, I have had the privilege of serving as Shadow Minister for Energy and Natural Resources for much of that time under two other leaders and along with Pierre Poilievre. And it has been an all-consuming passion and duty of my life to fight for energy workers, for the outsized contributions that Alberta makes to Canada, for the importance of private sector energy development, and against the Never Build Anything Anywhere C-69, the shipping ban C-48 that we learned today will stay in place, the crazy plastic bans, the drilling bans, the federal industrial carbon tax, and all those anti-development laws and regulations that this same Liberal government has imposed over the last 11 years and still has not repealed or reformed. And we have done all that together as Conservatives to expand Canada's oil production and exports for affordability, for affordable essentials for every single Canadian, for self-reliance, security, economic national unity here at home, and so Canada can provide our allies with the products and the technology that they need. Now, during all that time, over the last 11 years, I have worked very closely with Pierre Poilievre on major economic and resources issues. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about what I see up close and personal all the time. Now, it's the same thing that you hear in his riding of Battle River Crowfoot observe. It's a relentless work ethic. That's a standard he sets for each and every one of us caucus members. And I'll give you an example of that. If you've been following, you probably saw him yesterday. He was all over the place. He was in Three Hills, Trochu, Drumheller, Hanna, Irma, Wainwright, and of course here today in Camrose. And that's because Pierre Poilievre doesn't take a single Canadian or a single vote for granted. He works hard every single day and in every way to lead our Conservative Party of Canada and to earn the trust and confidence of everybody across the country. He has also always had a relentless focus on making life better for everyday Canadians, not for politicians or their connected insiders, fat cats, or corporate cronies. That's one of the biggest reasons I support Pierre Poilievre. And most importantly, he has the same values, the same principles, the same philosophy that he has held over decades, and he says the same thing in every room, in every province, in every region, for the best interests of all of Canada. His mission is to make Canada more affordable, safe, secure, self-reliant, and most importantly, more free. So it is, of course, my privilege to be able to be here to introduce him. And as you all know, he indeed did grow up in Alberta as the adopted son of two school teachers, and he's built a family with his wife Anna and his children Valentina and Cruz. As a former minister, I know I don't need to tell you that he did help the previous Conservative government cut taxes and balance budgets, deliver affordable homes, and crack down on crime and corruption. He himself shepherded through the Accountability Act to protect taxpayers from waste, from fraud, and from corruption, which continues to be his mission. And you know what? When he was housing minister, Canadians could actually afford rents, and they could actually afford to pursue their dreams of home ownership on safe streets and with affordable, good, nutritious food on their tables. Now, one thing that I really want you all to know is, as a member of Parliament who's worked closely with him, here's the truth. Pierre Poilievre was the first member of Parliament to raise that red flag. He was the first major and leading voice to warn that these massive money printing deficits would lead to inflation. And at that time, I know because I was at that committee, Mark Carney claimed that Canada would go through deflation. Instead, exactly what Pierre said is exactly what has happened, and Canada is now facing a Carney-caused recession as the only country in the G20. Pierre, of course, also led the charge against the carbon tax and the toughening laws to fight crime, banning drugs, and unlocking natural resources. And of course, don't we all know that all those Liberals and others who demonized and criticized him, well, in many ways, they've all now agreed that he's right, haven't they? And they claim to support the same sorts of position. But of course, as with Liberals, there's always gaps between their words and their actions. Now, in the most recent election, Pierre Poilievre got more votes than any Conservative leader in our history, the largest share of votes since 1988. And he added 2.5 million more votes, 25 more seats than the prior election. And all the major gains were predominantly among youth and working people. In fact, more young Canadians voted for Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre's leadership than at any other time in our history. But he, of course, although it seems hardly believable, has actually only begun. He is on the fight every day and in every way against Liberals doubling housing costs, against their inflated food prices, and against the crime that they have unleashed on our streets due to their soft-on-crime, hug-a-thug agenda. Pierre is fighting back. His purpose is a Canada with strong take-home pay, with safe streets, with secure borders, and most importantly, to build a self-reliant and strong Canada. So please help me and give a warm welcome to your Member of Parliament, the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and the next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Shannon, and thank you very much to the Camrose Legion Hall for hosting us today for this important message on how we're going to have affordable, safe and strong country for all people across the country. I want to thank Camrose Mayor PJ Stasko, MLA Jackie Lovely, who's here with us today, County Reeve Cindy Troutman, local CAO Teresa Gatrix, and thank you, of course, to the great Shannon Stubbs, our newly renamed Shadow Minister of Infrastructure with special responsibility for pipelines and other oil and gas questions. She has been fearlessly championing Alberta, oil and gas, and other important issues for a very long time. And it was great to be back here in my home province of Alberta to celebrate Canada Day yesterday, waving the flag, promoting our wonderful country, and instilling unity across the great Battle River Crowfoot riding, which feeds, powers, and protects this country. Ça me fait plaisir d'être ici, en Alberta, au lendemain du Fête du Canada, où on a eu une excellente célébration, où on a célébré notre pays extraordinaire avec les Albertains à travers les régions rurales de cette province extraordinaire. Les conservateurs ont trois priorités principales. L'abordabilité, l'abordabilité, l'abordabilité. On veut que les gens puissent acheter l'épicerie, payer leur hypothèque ou leur loyer et de mettre de l'essence dans leur voiture ou camion, tout en gardant de l'argent dans leur poche et leur compte de banque. Et nous voulons la promesse du Canada où chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison abordable dans des communautés sécuritaires pour fonder une famille, lancer une entreprise et bâtir un bel avenir. C'est ça le but des conservateurs, de l'équipe abordabilité qu'on vient d'annoncer avec notre nouveau cabinet Chantum. Malheureusement, après 11 ans des libéraux, tout coûte plus cher. Le gouvernement a gonflé le coût de la vie en imprimant de l'argent et en doublant la dette avec des énormes taxes sur l'énergie, sur le travail, sur la construction de logements et sur les industries. Tous les politiques des libéraux nous ont donné la pire économie dans le G7. M. Carney avait promis dans les dernières élections qu'il allait renverser tout ce qu'il avait dit et tout ce que son parti avait fait depuis 10 ans. Mais c'était qu'une illusion. Après 1 an et demi de Mark Carney, tout coûte plus cher, les taxes sont plus élevées et notre économie est même tombée en récession dans les 2 derniers trimestres. Le seul pays dans le G7. Nous avons la pire inflation alimentaire de tous les pays du G7. Les mères, les aînés et les autres Canadiens potentiels.
a fait partie du mouvement pour éliminer le secteur du pétrole. Il était en fait le chef du programme de l'ONU qui visait à éliminer le secteur de pétrolier. Et il a formé une alliance pour priver le secteur pétrolier et énergétique d'investissement. La semaine dernière, il a fait volte-face en disant que soudainement, il ne va pas réussir à atteindre des cibles d'émissions, mais nous avons de bonnes raisons à ne pas croire ses paroles parce qu'il a gardé en place toutes les lois anti-développement, C-69, C-48, la taxe carbone industrielle que M. Trudeau a mis en place. Il n'a pas livré un seul permis de construction avec ses nouveaux pouvoirs d'approbation qu'il a depuis 1 an. Il n'y a pas une pipeline en construction. On n'a rien vu en termes de résultats. On a juste vu des grandes annonces. Mark Carney est un grand parleur, petit faiseur. Tout est une grande illusion. Nous proposons d'éliminer la taxe carbone libérale, d'éliminer les lois anti-développement C-69 et C-48 pour permettre des permis dans 6 mois au lieu des années et pour permettre d'envoyer notre pétrole du côte nord de la Colombie-Britannique. Nous voulons un libre marché qui va permettre les 500 projets qui attendent l'approbation fédérale d'aller de l'avant sans devoir chercher des grandes subventions des contribuables. On ne veut pas une économie bâtie sur le BS coopératif. On veut une économie bâtie sur l'investissement, le travail, les taxes bas et les permis vite. C'est comme ça que nous allons agir. On ne veut pas une économie pour le petit club libéral qui reçoit tous les bénéfices au détriment des contribuables. Nous voulons une économie pour chacun qui travaille fort, pour monsieur et madame tout le monde. C'est comme ça qu'on va réinstaurer la promesse du Canada. Et c'est ça notre mission. Thank you again. It is our mission as conservatives to restore the promise of this country. Conservatives have 3 priorities: affordability, affordability, affordability. And what we're hearing far and wide is Canadians cannot afford to live after 11 years of this Liberal government, particularly to eat. Food prices are rising faster in Canada than in any other G7 country. And that's in part because of Liberal taxes right up and down the food chain. They brought in an industrial carbon tax on fertilizer, farm equipment, and food processing. There's a new renamed carbon tax they call the fuel standard, raising gas prices yet another 7 cents a liter. And they have inflationary spending that destroys the purchasing power of our money. That and the weak loonie are all driving up your grocery prices, and those are all the results of Mark Carney's policies. He promised he was going to reverse everything he said and did, and his party had done in the prior 10 years, but it was all an illusion. After a year and a half of Mark Carney, it is more costs, more debt, more handouts to the club of Liberal insiders, power brokers, and insiders, but nothing for the Canadian people. Today, we understand that Mark Carney will hold another announcement in Alberta regarding a potential future pipeline. To start with, let me congratulate the great Danielle Smith for continuing to fight for Alberta and its oil and gas sector. She's been up against a lot. The Liberal Party, at the instigation of their then economic advisor, Mark Carney, waged all-out war on our oil and gas sector for over 10 years. Mark Carney tries to distance himself from those policies in his rhetoric, but the reality is that he was the worldwide champion of it. He was the head of the UN agency seeking to shut down oil and gas. He was the head of a banking alliance seeking to defund the oil and gas sector. He advised Trudeau that the carbon tax needed to be bigger and broader. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline, which would be delivering 500,000 barrels of oil to the West Coast today, had the Liberals not killed it. And so now he claims that he's changed his mind, that he was wrong all along. Well, if that's the case, then why hasn't he eliminated C-69, the anti-development law? Why hasn't he eliminated the ban on shipping oil off the northwest coast of British Columbia? And why is he going ahead with a 500% increase in the industrial carbon tax, a tax that will not only drive up the cost of food and homes, but will drive billions of dollars out of our country, south of the border, where they pay no carbon tax whatsoever. We don't need more taxes. We need more affordable prices for industry and people. And we know that the consequences of these policies have been to make Canada more expensive. Food prices rising over 4%, the fastest in the G7. They've been doubled since Carney took office. Rents are up 3.5%. Gas prices have been up 33%. And even if you exclude gasoline, which has been affected by the war, we see prices are rising for everything else. This Prime Minister has doubled our deficit, increased the tax burden on energy, and doubled down on the policies that the Liberals have brought forward. Today in British Columbia, we got startling news that Mark Carney is going ahead with his condo bailout. This is a handout for donor developers and other Liberal insiders. At a time when Canadians cannot afford a home, they're being forced to pay through their taxes so that Carney's condo developer friends don't have to take a price reduction on the sale of their exorbitant condos. So the same young people who can't afford homes will have to compete with their own tax dollars to place bids on those empty condos. Conservatives have the solution, which is for the government to get out of the way, let the condo developers lower the prices so that Canadians can afford to buy those condos on the open market. It's called the free market, and it works. So today we will be watching with the interest as more details come out, but we have a solution also to get pipelines built and other projects built, and they are very simple. Get the federal government out of the way. Get the government out of the way and repeal the industrial carbon tax. Get the government out of the way, repeal the anti-development laws C-69. Get the government out of the way and allow shipping of oil off the northwest coast of BC. Get the government out of the way and permit a pipeline immediately upon receiving the path and the proposal from Premier Danielle Smith. By getting out of the way, we can allow builders to build, investors to invest, and workers to work. We've got to get away from Mark Carney's approach, which Ronald Reagan described, is that if a Liberal sees something that moves, they tax it. If it keeps moving, they regulate it. And when it stops moving, they subsidize it. Why not just get out of the way and let it move? We don't need politicians to get in the way. Politicians don't build pipelines, they block pipelines. And our approach is we want an economy based on low taxes, fast permits, and free enterprise, not an economy based on handouts, bailouts, and carve-outs for the Liberal club. We want a meritocracy, not an aristocracy. We want a country where hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home on a safe street with affordable, delicious food on your table every night. That's something to be excited about. That's the hope we're fighting for. Thank you very much, and keep the fight alive. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from reporters. Please identify yourself and your outlet.
Scott Mitchell with Stingray Radio. I know you've been touring around to the various communities in the constituency here over the last day or so. What have you been hearing from the farmers in particular with this record rainfall that we've gotten and the absolute insane flooding, just how it's impacting them now?
Yes, great question. In fact, I'm headed off to Tofield after this press conference where they've had some terrible flooding. I've already been on the phone with the Reeve and some of the other local representatives. Damien Currick, the former member of Parliament, hopefully future member of Parliament, is actively engaged and has been giving me regular briefings. And so they've been telling me that, it depends where they are. Tofield is really bad, extremely bad. But in other places, they're saying that if they get some heat units in the next 3 or 4 weeks, then the saturated soils could really blossom some incredible crops. So it really does, when you're asking me what they're saying, that's what they're saying. I was also reminding them that our approach is to get rid of all gas taxes for the rest of the year to save 25 cents a litre
20 bucks a fill up for a truck. Obviously, they all drive trucks, and about $1,200 between now and Christmas. And they thought that was a big help because, of course, one of the biggest costs for farming is fuel. So let's get those fuel prices down so that farmers can farm affordably. I'll have more to tell you when I'm finished meeting with the Tofield residents in a couple hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Aidan Sheikh, Camrose Booster. Now, you've been our MP for almost a year now. What is one of the biggest concerns that you hear from our constituents, and what are you doing about it?
Well, I would say the overall concern is affordability. People are working harder and harder, but they just can't make it. Young people are struggling to buy homes. Houses used to be really cheap in rural Alberta. You could buy a really nice house for $150,000. Now they've more than doubled. So the youth think, they ask themselves, how long will I have to save up to buy a home? Produce is really expensive at the grocery store. So a lot of mothers are saying that they've had to downgrade the diets of their kids. Seniors are cutting back on what they can afford to eat. And of course, fuel prices have been high, partly because our dollar is so low, and that hurts rural people more than anyone because, of course, they've got longer distances to drive, and the goods they buy have to come longer distances to get here. So I would say the number one our overarching concern is affordability, and that's why I've made affordability our top three conservative priorities.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you.
Bonjour Monsieur Poilievre, une question en français s'il vous plaît, Mathéo Delatte, Radio-Canada.
Merci.
Est-ce que la formule du pipeline proposée par Mark Carney aujourd'hui a de quoi calmer les ambitions séparatistes de l'Alberta?
Tout d'abord, on n'a pas vu la proposition. Ce que je dirais, c'est que le fait que les libéraux ont tué 2 pipelines déjà et ont imposé des lois anti-développement depuis 10 ans a alimenté un ressentiment en Alberta tout en affaiblissant notre économie. Donc, pour vraiment unir notre pays, il faut que M. Carney se tasse du chemin. Éliminer les taxes carbone, toutes les taxes carbone, éliminer les lois anti-développement et offrir des permis pour des pipelines qui traversent les provinces dans des jours et pas dans des mois. C'est comme ça qu'il peut envoyer un message aux Albertains que leur industrie clé, qui alimente toute notre économie à travers le Canada, y compris au Québec, va pouvoir grandir et que les Albertains peuvent être prospères au sein d'un Canada uni.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Lena. I'm with CBC. I just have a question. Alberta, BC, and the federal government all seem to be on side with a plan for the new oil pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast. Do you now believe this pipeline will be built, and what do you think of the agreement between the federal government and BC to keep the North Coast oil tanker ban in place?
So I can't answer the first part of your question because I haven't seen the final agreement. When we do, we'll respond accordingly. I think the North Coast ban is ridiculous. American tankers travel through those same Pacific waters all the time, from Alaska to the U.S. West Coast. So why does Mark Carney believe it's safe for our American tankers carrying American oil from Alaska to California is safe, but it's not safe for us to send Canadian oil over to Asia through the same passages? Secondly, it takes about 36 hours less time to get to Asia from northern BC as it does from southern BC. And that's because of the curvature of the Earth. It's just simple geometry. The further north you go, the shorter the curve you have to travel to get to the other side of the pond. And so that's why we believe that the best place to put a pipeline is to Prince Rupert or Kitimat, which can take 1 million barrels mostly to Asia. We don't want a pipeline that will simply lead tankers to take the oil south down to the California West Coast. We're trying to diversify here. So the best way to diversify is by permitting a pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta
to Prince Rupert or Kitimat to ship 1 million barrels a day over to Asia. We hope that the Prime Minister will signal his willingness to grant such a permit today. D'accord. Le nord-ouest de la Colombie-Britannique fait le plus grand sens de façon géographique. Ça prend à peu près 36 heures de moins pour acheminer le pétrole du nord de la Colombie-Britannique en Asie comparativement au sud. C'est à cause de simplement je ne sais pas comment le décrire en français, mais c'est la géométrie du monde, plus nord, moins de distance. Et nous voulons acheminer notre produit outre-mer en Asie. On ne veut pas simplement aller vers le sud pour traverser, pour envoyer le pétrole en Californie. Moi, j'éliminerais l'interdiction de pouvoir acheminer le pétrole dans le nord de la Colombie-Britannique parce que les Américains le font déjà dans les mêmes eaux. Donc, pourquoi est-ce qu'on permet les grands navires américains de traverser dans ces chemins-là et on bannit les Canadiens de faire exactement la même chose? C'est ridicule. On devrait donner le feu vert aux pipelines vers le sud de la Colombie-Britannique, vers le nord de la Colombie-Britannique et dans toutes les directions et permettre les investisseurs, les entrepreneurs et les travailleurs de la bâtir avec de l'argent privé.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Hello, Elliot with City News Edmonton. Obviously, you want that pipeline going through North BC. How would you go about accomplishing that? Just telling people in BC and those who are against the pipeline, too bad, Alberta and Canada need this? Just kind of wondering what your vision is to getting that done.
Well, first of all, we have to point out that British Columbians want the pipeline. They overwhelmingly support it. All the public opinion research shows that the vast majority of British Columbians support pipelines from Alberta to the Pacific. There's a radical group of fake environmentalists who've been fighting oil and gas for the last 15 years and have had the ear of the Liberal government in Ottawa. Frankly, they can have their say, but they can't have their way. There is no environmental argument against a pipeline to the northern BC ports. There is no environmental argument for it. If there were, we wouldn't be letting Americans take their tankers through those very same waters. And so why not lift the tanker ban, permit a pathway, and invite the private sector to come along and build? Obviously, they'd have to follow all the necessary environmental rules to protect against dangers, but we know that by far the safest and most environmentally responsible way to ship oil is by pipeline. Far safer than shipping it by rail. And so, at the end of the day, there's nothing, the only thing stopping the pipeline from going ahead is the federal government. It's a strictly federal permit. There is no provincial permitting for an interprovincial project. It's right in the Constitution. Anything that crosses provincial boundaries is federal. So you got one guy standing in the way of it all, and that's Mark Carney. Our view is he needs to get out of the way and permit all proposals. By the way, I'm not against another pipeline going to the southern part of British Columbia. Provide the permit, let the private sector build it, get out of the way, and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the last question now.
All right.
Try to keep it really brief. Do you support the construction of the Pathways project as a condition of the West Coast pipeline?
I don't think it should be a condition at all. Absolutely not. We'll see what they propose, but I personally believe that this. I'll have more to say when I see what they propose, but we'll make one thing very clear: for the federal government to force Albertans to spend billions of dollars on this project as a condition of building a highly productive and profitable pipeline is unfair. What the federal government needs to do is get rid of all these conditions, get rid of the industrial carbon tax, the anti-development laws, the pathways requirement, and let the private sector build this pipeline with private money.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes today's press
Thank
conference.
you. All right. Thank you.
What do we do now?
That way. Yes.